And we're back.
Once again for episode 41 of the Horror Guys.
I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
And we've got some more movies for you this week.
Yeah, we saw movies and a short.
We did. This week we'll cover the Universal Studio flick, House of Dracula.
I'd never seen that before.
I kind of wish I hadn't. The Curse of the Werewolf from 1961.
I had seen that.
Return to Horror Hotel. Speaking of regrets.
Brand new movie.
Should be a banned new movie.
No.
And Night of the Seagulls, 1974.
That one, yeah.
Yeah, that was good. Okay, now this time...
Good?
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Normally, we get right into the snack of the week and the movies. This time I want to tell you what we're doing over the next few weeks. This is our last regular show for... Actually, it's going to be the first weekend of October, so we're already running a little bit over.
And then it's Halloween season.
Halloween season. October 12th, we'll be starting our pair of family-style Halloween shows. We're going to start out with 1990's The Witches, along with Return to Oz from 1985. Not generally considered a horror movie, but most people that I've talked to say it's terrifying.
Mm-hmm. I have heard that.
Caroline... Autocorrect got Caroline. Coraline from 2009, and the Goosebumps movie from 2015. So pick those up, watch them, and we'll talk about those next week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so on the 19th, the following week, we're going to be going to the Flint Film Fright Fest here in Flint, Michigan.
Flint Fright Film Fest.
Too many F's.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we'll be going to that on the 12th, but our show about it won't be until the 19th because we've got our other show coming out that day.
Mm-hmm.
And that episode will be nothing but horror films that we see at that show. We'll tell you about them. Some are going to be great. Some of them are going to suck terribly. And we'll give you YouTube links for all of them that we can.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those aren't not always available on YouTube, so it probably won't be all of them. But the ones that we can show you, we'll put you on YouTube for.
Some, yeah.
Then, when we come back on October 26th, a few days before Halloween, we'll be watching more family-friendly Halloween fun with The Mad Monster Party from 1967, which you've never seen.
I've never seen most of these.
I've never seen most of these.
Yeah.
Hocus Pocus from 1993, Monster Squad from 1987, and Curse of the Were-Rabbit from 2005. Then in November, we'll be up to... I guess you have to tune in and see in November.
It'll be a surprise.
For all of us at this point.
Yeah.
It's getting a little further ahead than we usually do. Okay, so we got movies this week.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to have a snack before the movies?
Sure. What should we have?
Belly flops.
Belly flops. These are made by the Jelly Belly company.
Yep.
It's the classic Jelly Bellies that didn't quite meet the inspection standards. They're just fine, but there's a lot of them that are Siamese, where they're fused together. There's been some that are...
This is like 3 of them. They're the same color.
And it's all their flavors.
Yeah.
It's totally random. But some
Here's
are...
a double where 2 of them are stuck together.
More coating. Some are more jelly, and they're just not... They didn't meet their final inspection, but they're still perfectly tasty.
Most of these look just fine to me. They're like jelly bean shaped.
And the beauty of it is you get a much bigger bag for much cheaper. They're not always available, because they're only made of the mistakes, and they don't make them on purpose. But
Let's see, one of those was watermelon, the other one was like penicillin flavored.
I think this one was bubblegum. Anyway, they're really good, and if you can find them, and you like Jelly Bellies, you should try them. Get them.
That one's snot flavored.
Oh, they don't do that.
I know, because we had boogers last week.
Mm-hmm. We know what those taste like, yeah. That one's banana chocolate. I recognize it. No? Maybe not. It's hard to tell by the colors. But
Yeah,
anyway.
that one is a 6-week-old corpse.
Anyway, they're slightly irregular Jelly Bellies. And they're a win.
Last year's body. Swamp feces.
I think he's exaggerating. Just a little bit.
Dog poop with extra sweetener. Dried blood. Yum.
Okay.
Okay, there's a variety of flavors.
Jelly flops.
Belly flops.
Belly flops.
Yes.
Yes, belly
Are
flops.
they flops because they're defective? Or yeah, okay.
Yeah,
it makes
irregular
sense.
jelly beans.
There's a variety of flavors. Some of them are really good. Some of them are actually kind of nasty. But
Well,
it's a mix. It's that kind of
all
thing.
their flavors randomly
Yeah.
mixed. Yeah.
Just much like our show this week. Some of them are really great. Some are kind of nasty.
Some are not. Yeah.
Well, we're going to start out this week with
House of Dracula,
Dracula.
from 1945.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago we watched House of Frankenstein, and this is definitely kind of a follow-up to that one. What'd you think?
Overall, kind of liked it. I liked it more than disliked it, but boy, it was pretty absurd.
Suspension of disbelief takes a little bit of work on this one.
Oh, a whole lot. Yeah, even more than a usual.
Yeah. You like it better than House of... Well, let's talk about that later.
No, I liked House of Frankenstein better.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
That's the one where they kill Dracula and before they even get to anybody else?
Yeah.
Yeah, this one just get a little more Dracula in it.
Yeah, a lot more Dracula. Yeah.
Well, House of Dracula kind of ought to be important.
Yeah, should be about him. And
unlike Frankenstein, who wasn't really all that important in the House of Frankenstein.
It starts right out with Dracula fluttering by.
Yeah. Directed by Earl Kenton, written by Edward Lowe, stars Onslow Stevens, John Carradine, and Lon Chaney Jr. 1 hour, 6 minutes. Link in the show notes to pick this up.
Mm-hmm.
Dracula appears in his bat form outside the window of a woman. He goes downstairs, enters, and introduces himself as Baron Latos.
Doesn't need an invitation to come in. He just walks in. Did you notice that?
Yeah. Didn't notice that.
Yeah, that's a trope that came later.
And of course, Baron Latos is the pseudonym he was using back with the House of Frankenstein.
So much better than Count Alucard.
Not quite as obvious.
And no explanation in this movie of how he came back.
No.
Because he was killed at the end of the last one.
He got dusted in that one,
Yeah.
So he introduces himself as Baron Latos to Dr. Edelman, a well-known expert in psychiatry who lives in a castle in Visaria. Dracula wants him to go with him to see something in the castle's basement. On the way, they talk about how vampirism is a psychological disease. Way back in Dracula's Daughter, this idea came up.
Yeah.
That vampirism may not be real. It's a psychological thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're kind of coming back to that one.
Well, it does.
But this is Dracula. He knows better.
Yeah, and it does end up being a physical cause, not psychological.
Well, Edelman doesn't believe that a man can turn himself into a bat. Surprisingly enough, Dracula doesn't show him.
Yeah, why not just demonstrate?
That kind of remove all... Somebody turn into a bat in front of me, I'm going to believe what they say.
I think I'm convinced.
Yeah. When they get to the basement, Dracula's coffin is already there. He admits exactly who he is and explains that he wants to be cured of his affliction. So Dracula, the blood-sucking immortal guy, goes to a psychiatrist for a cure.
Well, he's not just psychiatrist, too. He's a multi-genre...
Mad scientist.
Not what's the word I'm looking for? Not multi.
Non-denominational.
Yeah.
He gets
in
around.
multiple fields.
Yeah.
He's a smart guy and dabbles in a lot of things, and Dracula knows this.
The next day, Edelman works with mold spores taken from a rare plant, and his hunchback assistant, Nina, is told that she will be the recipient of the benefit. He thinks he can cure a great many things with these almost magical spores.
Mm-hmm.
The Baron shows up the next night, and Dracula shows up too. Edelman is ready to start treatments. Meanwhile, out in the waiting room, Larry Talbot doesn't have an appointment. Isn't that the way it always works?
And just by the most amazing coincidence, here's Dracula, and look who shows up. Oh, it's the Wolfman, too.
Well, just coincidence. Lucky timing. That's all.
Yeah, that's all it was, yeah.
Tonight's the full moon, and he can't wait for the doctor to become available, so he leaves. Edelman finishes up with Dracula's first treatment and hears that Inspector Holtz wants to see him. Apparently, Talbot has turned himself in to the local police to be locked up. That works, if you can get him to lock you up.
Yeah.
Edelman is skeptical, but Talbot changes and proves him wrong as he and Holtz look on.
Yeah, see, he changes in front of him, unlike Dracula, who just says, take my word for it.
Yeah, I can really change him into a bat.
Yeah.
You really can turn into a werewolf.
Yeah.
Edelman's nurse, Melisa, has the hots for Larry. Edelman does some x-rays and determines that Talbot has pressure on his brain. This condition leads to self-hypnosis, which changes his metabolism. Edelman thinks...
very weird and weak.
Weak logic, but they're trying with an explanation.
They're trying to be scientific, but it's really weak. Really, no, that's not how science works. But
Edelman thinks his mold spores can solve the problem, But it's not going to be a quick fix. He'll have to be locked up again tonight. Talbot says, oh, hell no, and jumps off a cliff instead. He turned himself in jail last night to be locked up. What's so terrible about that?
Why not do that again? No, suddenly it's intolerable.
Drama queen, I'll jump off the cliff.
Dramino and
splash.
Splash. It's not a splat, it's a splash.
Yeah. They lower Edelman down the cliff on a pulley, and he finds a cave.
Oh, because he thinks that there's a chance that the tide would have swept him into... He knows there's a cave somewhere under the castle.
Yeah.
And that, there's a hope that Talbot,
Maybe he's not dead.
Yeah.
Inside the cave, the Wolfman attacks, but changes back to Talbot before actually killing Edelman. It's never quite clear why he changed back right at that moment.
More fortuitous timing.
It was still nighttime.
Yeah, but he was out of the full moon.
But why not just stay inside in a closet all night, or in a bedroom with no windows? Don't
overthink this. Don't overthink this movie.
It turns out that the cave they're standing in is ideal for growing the spores that are needed to cure Larry.
And
there's
also yet another coincidence.
Just happens to have the skeleton of Dr. Nyman and the monster of Frankenstein, whom everyone knows is indestructible.
Frankenstein's monster.
But they do have the Dr. Nyman, the guy from the previous movie in there, his bones. Just give it a little continuity. And that was kind of good.
A little bit, yeah.
They move the spore plants down to the cave and start to study the monster. It'll take a month for the spores to grow, so Larry just has to hang out and cool his heels until the next full moon.
And in the meantime, the doctor decides, well, why not
play with the monster?
Play around with the monster. Charge him up a bit. See what happens.
Yeah, he gets ready. He gets all the machines built, gets ready to charge him up, but then he has second thoughts and turns off the machine and says, I'm not going to do that.
Well, the hunchback nurse convinces him to.
Yeah. She's
really a sweet, good-hearted person.
Frankenjuice.
Yeah. Convinces him not to do it. And he, okay.
Dracula's working on charming Melissa as she plays the piano, but she breaks the spell. She gets distracted and doesn't give Dracula his shot.
Yeah, he's undergoing treatments, a serum that's getting injected.
Yeah, they are actually trying to cure him, and he's all for it. He wants to be cured. Nina the Hunchback sees Melissa with Dracula. She notices he doesn't leave a reflection in the mirror as they go out.
Which was a pretty good special effect. It was neat.
Nina tells Edelman what's happened. Edelman wants to do another transfusion, but Edelman passes out during the process. Dracula then mesmerizes Nina and makes her pass out too. It looks like Dracula switches the transfusion around and gives his blood to Edelman.
Yeah, he does. He switches the levers and pumps some into Edelman. So that
we were talking last week
Edelman
with the Invisible Man about the pumping transfusion thing.
It's one of those things.
It's that, and this time we get to see that there's a little valve that shows which direction the blood's. That kind of makes sense. I'll bet that probably is the way it was done.
And so Dracula gives him a dose.
Yeah, so bad things are going to happen to old Edelman.
Yeah.
Dracula goes up to Melissa's bedroom, but Edelman holds him off with a cross while Talbot grabs Melissa. Dracula goes and hides in his coffin with Edelman right behind. The sun starts to come up and Dracula goes all skeletal again. He's dead again.
And Dracula will never see him again.
Never see him again, no.
All done.
Well, he's done for this film.
This movie, yeah.
That night, Edelman watches as his reflection in the mirror disappears.
Yeah, that was neat. He's gradually
turning into a vampire.
He's kind of gradually, partially becoming a vampire.
Yeah, it's a slow
It's
thing.
a weird. That's not the usual transformation.
Not an overnight switch.
Yeah.
He has visions of releasing the Frankenstein monster upon the town below. He then rushes down to the lab and turns on the machines.
Which is kind of a weird, I'm becoming a vampire. Might as well reanimate the monster and set it loose.
He was being overtaken by evil.
Okay, that's it. Yeah.
There's only enough spores for one operation, and Edelman wants to fix Nina's back and let Talbot wait. Edelman knows he's running out of time. He knows what's happening. Nina says no, let Talbot have the operation. Edelman uses the spores to expand Larry Talbot's skull to release the pressure he saw there.
Or something like that.
No, that was the goal. He didn't have to actually even operate. He just used him in the skull. Nothing we could see, but allegedly the skull was
his
tight,
head was
which made
bandaged
pressure. Yeah.
And that makes him a werewolf.
Okay.
It was bad science. Bad science.
Hey, for many decades, psychiatrists believed that if you drilled a hole in your skull to relieve pressure, you could solve all kinds of problems. This is doing the same thing without the drill in the blood.
Kind of.
I mean, it's science fiction-y, but there's logic there. Of the time.
With mixing in some spores too. Yeah.
Larry has his doubts that the cure works, but everyone says wait and see. He watches as Edelman hops on a carriage and sucks all the blood out of Siegfried the servant. Except the speech goes on so long that, Edelman's got, I am evil now, I will drink your blood. And the speech goes on for so long that the carriage enters the middle of town and everybody sees him do it. The town chases him home.
Real smooth.
Yeah. Monologue's a little too long there.
Yeah.
But the inspector instead blames Larry Talbot because he had his throat ripped out, and who would do that?
Yeah, the werewolf. Yeah.
Edelman and the nurses back up Talbot's story. He was here all along. He can't even walk. He's sedated.
Mm-hmm.
Talbot confronts Edelman. Since he saw the whole thing, Edelman tells him what's going on with Dracula's blood. He still wants time to cure Nina's back with the spores, and then he wants to die, with Larry's help if necessary. It's the night of the full moon. Edelman tells Larry to look onto the moon with the expectation of a new life. Meanwhile, the villagers are marching on the castle to arrest or kill Edelman. Why they took several weeks to get there, we don't know.
Yeah, it takes time to organize a mob
pitchforks
sometime.
and torches.
Yeah.
Larry
Put
goes
enough
outside,
torches together.
stands in the light of the moon, and the moon rises.
And he doesn't become
cured.
a wolf man anymore. He's cured.
Meanwhile, Edelman goes back and wakes up Frankenstein's monster for real. Edelman strangles Nina, and the monster attacks the policeman. Talbot shoots Edelman and pushes a bookcase on top of the monster, which then catches fire, killing pretty much everyone. The end.
Well, except Larry Talbot and his new gal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Happy ending for Larry Talbot.
Happy ending for Larry Talbot.
And just coincidentally,
his
Lon
new
Chaney
friend.
Jr.'s contract was up with Universal.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, I guess, the last of, they were thinking at the time this would be the last Lon Chaney werewolf movie.
Under contract, yeah. He went on and did tons of stuff.
Including more werewolf, I think.
Yeah. But the official contract was done.
Yeah.
On this one. Yeah. He was a free man.
Again, Hollywood didn't have much idea of what psychiatry was really about. It was a fairly new idea for most people, and there was plenty of misunderstanding. Penicillin was invented in 1928, and that may be where the idea for these nearly magical spores came from. My mold is better than your mold.
Mm-hmm.
What psychiatry couldn't fix, maybe spores could. And what a miraculous time to be alive. At least until they drill a hole in your skull to relieve the pressure. The story moves really, really fast with no padding or slow spots. All this happens in an hour and 6 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does cram in
It actually could have used some more fleshing out in some areas, slow it down some. There's a lot going on, but it does mostly all make sense, although it feels a lot rushed. Dracula gets a lot more to do here than he did in House of Frankenstein, but he still doesn't interact with the Wolfman or the monster. But at least he's not a simple pawn of a maniac like last time.
Mm-hmm.
Frankenstein monster gets less than a minute of screen time, and the Wolfman's monster really doesn't get much more than that. None of the actual monsters interact. Frankenstein versus the Wolfman? Nope. Frankenstein versus Dracula? Nope.
Nope.
There's no monster-on-monster fighting.
You gotta wait for those. They're coming, though.
Sorta.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Overall, a thumbs up. It was okay.
I think it was probably better than House of Frankenstein. You like Frankenstein better?
I like Frankenstein better. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Curse of the Werewolf, 1961. Hammer's one and only werewolf film. Which I don't know why that is, never found out, but they only made the one.
I don't know.
Directed by Terrence Fisher, written by Anthony Hines and Guy Endor, stars Clifford Evans, Oliver Reed, and Yvonne Romaine. 1 hour, 33 minutes. Amazon link in the notes.
A young Oliver Reed.
He's sober, mostly.
In his early 20s.
Did you like it?
I did. Yes. Overall, yes. Like that.
I remember watching this all the time at like 4 in the afternoon on normal TV.
Yeah, I think I saw it.
Every once in a while they'd have like a horror week, and this was always in the rotation.
Yeah.
This one takes place in Spain. The plane in Spain? This one takes place in Spain 200 years ago. A beggar comes to town and wonders why the church bells are all ringing and the streets are deserted. The Marquise... Is it Marquise?
Marquis.
Are they saying it that? I thought they were calling him the Marquis.
No,
Much more literal sounding than Marquis.
I think they were saying Marquis.
Okay.
The Marquis Sinestro. That was his name.
Dark
Is that
evil.
awesome? Is
Dark
that awesome
evil.
or what? Well, he is a bastard.
Marquis
so,
Sinestro.
Yeah.
Is getting married today, and everything is closed. The beggar goes to the castle hoping for some charity from the wedding party. The Marquis is a bully who likes to pick on and humiliate the servants, so there is no way that's going to end well. After a humiliating torment, he's locked in the dungeon for decades.
And
they forget about him.
In a small role is Q from James Bond.
He's not even credited.
No.
If we hadn't recognized
an uncredited footman.
The old man, Desmond Llewellyn from the old Bonds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's like a footman or a doorman
Bonds.
or something. He's got one line.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's there.
Yeah.
The only other person the beggar knows is the jailer and his daughter, a mute girl. The Marquis gets annoyed with the girl, and he throws her in the dungeon with the long-forgotten beggar. The beggar has long since gone insane, and he rapes her. She goes to see the Marquis again, and she stabs him to death and run off.
And he's old and decrepit now by this point. It's been so long.
Yeah.
Oh.
And little trivia to throw in here before we do this. In the trivia, they mentioned that the beggar was intended to be a werewolf. So later on, Oliver Reed would inherit the werewolf genes from the beggar. But no, they decided that being a werewolf and a rapist is too much for the censors, so they just made him a rapist. We'll keep the rape part and throw the werewolf out.
Can't have both. Wow.
So the beggar's not a werewolf, he's just a rapist, and that's okay to the Hammer censors. Don Alfredo finds her unconscious in the woods and takes her home. The girl is now pregnant. The servant points out to Alfredo that the girl is going to have her baby on Christmas Day, which is a bad omen and an insult to heaven.
Well, it's because it was a regular birth is okay on Christmas, but this was a rapey birth under, unwanted. And
how does anybody know that? She can't read, write, or speak. No, I think it's just. I don't think they did. I think it's just a Christmas Day birth.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
And I've known people whose birthday was on Christmas Day, and they didn't become werewolves.
I thought the priest said it was because it was an unwanted baby. But yeah, they wouldn't have known that.
There's no way.
Yeah, because she's mute. She didn't say anything.
If you can't read, you can't write, and you can't speak, there's. Yeah. I don't know.
Hmm.
The baby is born at just the wrong time, but the mother soon dies. When it's time to be baptized, the pool of holy water boils.
And that's a bad sign, usually.
You betcha.
Yeah. But they carry on and have the baptism anyway, despite the thunderstorm that has suddenly sprung up outside, too.
Yeah. There are signs.
Yeah.
Several years later, Pepe, a hunter, finds dead animals on the grounds. He waits until that night and shoots when he hears the howling of a wolf. Just coincidentally, little boy Leon, Alfredo's ward, has a bullet in his knee the next morning.
How'd that happen?
Yeah, Alfredo and Teresa figure out what's what. Leon dreams that he's a wolf, drinking blood, and he's got very hairy palms.
So the kid was
Which is also not how I heard you get hairy palms.
Well,
I've heard there are other ways.
Maybe that's how it starts. I don't know.
The priest thinks Leon is a werewolf, and he advises Alfredo to take care. The priest says that Leon may be cured by finding a good woman who loves him very much. Alfredo installs bars on the boy's windows so he can't get out again. Pepe the hunter knows he hit the creature in the woods, so this time he makes a silver bullet. The bars keep Leon inside, so the hunter never gets to use that bullet. Instead, he wears it on a string around his neck as a souvenir. He does shoot at a dog while Leon fights to get through the bars. They blame everything on that dog.
Yeah, wild, crazy dog.
And it's a good scene of the little kid at the bars. That's one of the scenes I remembered from this one. Leon grows up and goes to town for work. Apparently, Don Alfredo is a rich man. He's got this villa up on the mountain. And they all live in the same village, but he has to go out and live in this guy's cellar to learn a job in the vineyard.
Learn a trade.
Okay.
Yeah. Can't sponge off Dad forever.
He finds a place to work at the local vineyard. He meets the boss's daughter, and he likes her. Of course, the boss's daughter's father, the boss doesn't like him because he's just a poor man. But he's not.
No. Yeah, that part doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And we know it's the same town because they go get Don Alfredo later.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they know whose kid he is. Adopted kid, but still, it's rich.
Only heir he's got.
Rich family, yeah.
He and his coworker go out to celebrate on Saturday night, and it just happens to be a full moon. Leon gets sick and leaves the party. He kills the girl he's with, and also his coworker, and then he runs off and kills a farmer the same night.
As a werewolf.
And we are led to believe when he leaves home and comes to town to work, he has not had a werewolf incident in many years. Alfredo and Teresa's love has kept him happy and healthy and human, and he's great. Why would going down to get and drinking on Saturday night just suddenly bring this up? We don't know.
It's unclear, but it does.
Yeah.
He wolfs out.
Alfredo finds Leon back in his own bedroom, and the bars on the window are broken inwards. He knows what's happened. Alfredo, Teresa, and the priest explain everything to Leon as it's time for him to learn the truth. Leon has a grown-up temper tantrum when he runs off, and he literally throws himself onto the ground and beats the dirt. Kicks a tree and throws a rock, and real grown-up there.
Yeah.
That night, he starts to turn again when Christina, the boss's daughter, comes in. He's afraid for her, but she stays with him, and he doesn't actually change.
Mm-hmm.
She held the creature at bay. She must be the woman who loves him.
Yep.
He and Christina make plans to run off and get married, since she can keep him under control. Unfortunately...
But she doesn't know this. She doesn't know he's a werewolf at this point. Yeah.
Unfortunately, the police arrest Leon for the murders. He was there. He's got blood all over him. They left his clothes behind.
Circumstantial evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leon wants Alfredo to ask the judge to execute him. They go see the mayor and tell him everything. Leon, Christina, Alfredo, the priest, and the mayor all meet at the jail. Things go badly, and Leon reminds Alfredo that Pepe has a silver bullet. That evening, the moon rises, and Leon breaks out of jail. Leon climbs up on the roof, and the rest of the city chases him. Alfredo gets the silver bullet and shoots Leon, killing him. It's all very dramatic and over with pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Oliver Reed doesn't appear until just over an hour into the movie.
48 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, 48 minutes. Okay.
He gets second billing after Alfredo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I seem to remember Hammer films being low budget and cheap looking, but this definitely was not.
It was not cheap looking, no.
The sets alone in this one are impressive, and it was actually filmed in Spain. This is also Hammer's only werewolf movie, which is odd, but also it's very much worth watching.
Mm-hmm.
Oliver Reed doesn't show up until 48 minutes into the film. I stopped and checked.
Okay.
But he's very good in the last half of the story.
Yeah.
I've seen this one a half a dozen times, and I'm still not decided whether the werewolf makeup is really good or really bad.
I think it's pretty good.
But Leon is a very distinctive-looking werewolf, much more like the Wolfman than a modern super dog werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
Modern werewolves are all just big animals.
Mm-hmm.
They're mostly CGI. They're much less human than these older werewolves.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of gray-looking, and you can actually see a lot of skin on his face instead of hair.
It's distinctly different than the Lon Chaney werewolf makeup, too.
They're similar, but they're very different. Yeah, he's
I like this
probably the most distinctive werewolf I can think
makeup
of.
Better.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I like this one. It's a long time getting to the actual werewolf, but he's good.
Yeah, it's worth the wait. Overall.
Want a cookie?
Yeah.
Our short film this week, called Kookie. 2009 by Justin Harden. YouTube link below. And 12 minutes, 39 seconds. So this is a long one for us. Like it?
Mm-hmm. Very much.
Yeah, I thought it was very good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I won't say best of the year. I think last week's took that prize, but it was very good.
It's right up there. It was really good.
A little girl watches old horror movies on TV and eats cookies. She eats a lot of cookies and then lies about it when her mother gets home.
Tummy ache.
How many of those jelly beans have you had?
One.
One? Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm. That's what she said. I had one.
Suddenly, there's a scary new cookie jar. Whenever a child has stolen a cookie from this jar, her mother warns, and it is an evil-looking cookie jar. It's got this ugly, scary clown on it.
Angry-looking clown with a blue mohawk sticking up.
Yeah. She opens the jar and pulls out one cookie. She's brave enough to steal a cookie.
Mm-hmm.
She then continues to watch old movies as it gets dark outside. She sees the cookie jar in the background of the movie she's watching. She goes looking for her mom, but finds something else.
Mm-hmm.
And this is only about halfway in. I like it. It's got a full story with characters and everything. The cookie jar alone is creepy enough, and it's well filmed and the acting is good. They could have ended it halfway through, and it still would have been good.
And, I thought that was the end, and I was momentarily disappointed, and then I realized, it's halfway. That's not the end.
But with the second half, they elevate it to something completely unexpected.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that ending. And
almost 13 minutes, a little longer than usual, but give it a shot. It's really good.
Yeah, really well done.
Speaking of really well done, our modern movie this week is Return to Horror Hotel from 2019.
It's streaming on Amazon currently.
Amazon Prime has it.
Mm-hmm.
Directed by Ricky Hess, Brandon Thaxton, written by Al Hess, and stars Baby Norman, J. Michael Gray, and R.C. Saya. 1 hour, 23 minutes.
Do you think Baby Norman's a stage name?
I hope so.
Okay.
This is an anthology of 4 stories.
It is.
Now, I've said before on here that I really like anthologies, and I wish there'd be more of them.
Mm-hmm. You're going to be mean to this one, aren't you?
I could be mean to this one.
It's not perfect.
Actually, of the 4 stories,
but the next day,
the first one is truly horrendously garbage worthy. The last 3 are okay. The problem is the first one is so bad that it tainted my vision. I saw everything on the next 3, and it threw a haze of bed bugs.
it wasn't that bad. It was creepy and gross. It was body horror, and and the next day I was still thinking about them, and so
The first installment is called Sleep Tight. A woman and 2 kids rent a room at the hotel. Meanwhile, a big strong guy works out and takes his exercise supplements, admiring himself in the mirror.
Lots of testosterone,
Lots of
steroids.
weights.
He's roiding up.
In another room, a couple with rotting sores and what looks like tar on their legs soak them in buckets. The muscle man is collecting his own sweat in a jar. He sells it as an aphrodisiac.
I didn't know that was a thing.
I was just going to say, is that a thing?
Maybe.
He notices in the mirror that his back is all bloody, then spots huge bed bugs under his sheet. He gets on the phone to the manager, and I quote, "Carnivorous cooties are cutting me in my sleep. They're eating my steroids," he says. He then checks out of the motel.
See, it had some great lines.
Oh, yeah.
And so there were a couple of times I laughed out loud, and a couple of times where I grimaced. And
it's a low-budget, zero-budget movie with some good humor to it. They were not taking themselves too seriously. Okay, maybe you'll convince me.
Yeah.
The guy with bad legs pours alcohol and baking soda on them.
A well-known cure for sores.
Yeah. A group of friends come over, asking to try, "Hey, you got some bugs? Is it a new drug?"
Mm-hmm.
Well, you put it in a real cigarette and smoke it.
Yeah, grind up these bugs.
It's just ground up bug powder. It ain't illegal, the guy says. It's made from bed bug venom. They put you. They numb you when they bite you, so you don't feel a thing, but you get enough of it. And that's what's been eating his legs. The bed bugs are getting bigger. Hey, maybe they're eating steroids, he jokes.
These bugs are on steroids. Well, they are.
Yeah. Oh, the woman with the kids decides to go out, leaving the children alone. Before she can go out, she passes out on the bed drunk. The kids make a blanket for it and hide in there. Unfortunately, it seems that no one seems to remember that bed bugs bite.
Mm-hmm.
Good night. Sleep tight.
Yeah.
Don't let the bed bugs
Not so much.
bite.
Yeah.
Okay, so I thought this one, honestly, we were 10 minutes in and he's like, "Are we watching the right movie? This doesn't make any sense."
Well, it didn't at first. And the description didn't quite match what it said in IMDb. I don't know, because it was Horror Hotel and Return to Horror Hotel, and I don't know, I wasn't matching up what I was reading with what I was seeing. But then it did. I mean, gradually, yes, okay, I see where this is going.
It kept switching from room to room, and nothing much seemed to happen initially, and there was just too
much.
Are
all 4 anthologies mashed together?
It kind of looked that way.
Because the rooms were so distinct, the 3 rooms with the steroid guy and the woman with the kids and the druggies. The bug druggies. And, what, it's 3 stories? No, it's 3, okay, there,
Again, I thought the first one was really bad, and that was one of the reasons. It was confusing. The other 3 get better.
Confusing at first. Yeah, I thought they got better.
The second one is called Guillotine. 2 women go to meet a car dealer in room 223. He goes out and looks at their car. He trades her a rotten old piece of wood that he explains is Marie Antoinette's guillotine.
Well,
and
a little piece of it.
It's a piece of it,
And that dark stain is her blood soaked into the wood.
Yeah. And Marilyn Monroe used this to get into Playboy. This unique relic gives women an edge over all others. They test it, and it works. Even the girls' clothes change.
Mm-hmm.
Dorian, whose last name is Gray, wants it, so they make the trade. Dorian's friend, who wears glasses with no glass in them, wants to borrow the device,
Yeah,
but Dorian refuses.
And I hadn't even noticed the glasses with no glass. But
I always notice that.
Okay, yeah. She's wearing the glasses.
People
with
in
no
movies
glass.
that are trying to look smart or try to look dorky or whatever, they wear these great big glasses with no
Our glasses
glass
have
in them.
glass. Yeah.
Anyway, she wants to borrow it, but Dorian refuses. They argue, and Dorian tries to strangle her with the necklace. In the struggle, Dorian falls through a glass table and dies. The end.
Well, that's how she dies, though.
She's beheaded by the broken glass.
Like a guillotine.
Guillotine, yes.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
No Time for Love is the third episode.
This one kind of got me in the feels a little bit.
I think this probably was the best of the three.
Yeah.
The girl is asked to deliver a book to a hermit who lives in the motel. The bookstore owner is reading a book called No Time for Love. Just coincidental there. Johnny walks to the motel with a pair of borrowed crutches. She falls through the door when one of the crutches break, and when she wakes up, Davy, whose last name is Jones, patches up her injury. Davy explains that he used to navigate submarines until his boat sank, and he's been retired at the motel ever since.
Kind of stuck in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He explains on how in a submarine you live on an 18-hour day. And he's got one of these 18-hour Navy clocks, which I guess is real?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
The clock totally is sped up ever since Johnny came inside. And you can see it bzzz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been accelerating.
Time really is accelerating.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly, Davy starts looking older. And older.
Mm-hmm.
And older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And telling the story of, kind of falling in love with her, but there's no time for love. It's like the time is up. The time bubble is broken, basically. Yeah.
Fourth one, Houdini's hand. Two men come into the motel talking about a big deal they're involved in. They're selling an old box that contains Houdini's hand. Supposedly, it unlocks doors and safes and stuff. And he calls the card dealer from the guillotine story. It's the same character.
Mm-hmm.
The box opens, and there's no hand inside. The owner of the hand calls. He wants it back. They have to find the hand. It must be in the room
It escaped.
somewhere.
It's a puzzle box that
Yeah.
it escaped from the inside of its own puzzle box.
Okay, if I had to say which one is best, I'd go with the third one is best, No Time for Love.
Yeah, I thought so.
Guillotine was decent enough, the second one.
And
Houdini's
fourth one
hand was just
second
silly. But
favorite.
it was good.
It was fun.
And the first one was god-awful.
Not as good. I'll go with this first saying not as good. Yeah.
All right, well, I was checking the time already by 6 minutes in. That's not a good sign. Kevin kept thinking we were watching the wrong movie because it made no sense 10 minutes in.
But I quickly figured it out after that. It was okay.
The stories aren't terrible in themselves, but the acting, cheap sets, and overall cheesiness make the whole experience kind of ridiculous. It's one of those movies that's so bad it's kind of fun. Or just done for fun to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
The first story's stupidity level numbed my mind to the point where I didn't mind the other three so much. It was,
Harsh.
The bed bugs made me sedated. I don't know. I really like anthologies, and I would like to see more of them, but this is just
no.
Wow.
It was good. I liked it.
Wow.
I liked it. I give it a thumbs up. I say watch it. I say watch it, viewers. Watch it. Viewers and listeners, you should watch this.
Okay, if you gotta.
Nobody messes with Stumpy Nixon. That's a quote.
Yeah, that's true.
Best movie.
I wonder how much of this would have been better if we had seen Horror Hotel 1. If Stumpy Nixon or the car dealer guy were in those.
Yeah.
Made by the same people. Probably
maybe.
Was.
Yeah, might have. Yeah. Yeah, might have been some tie together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have to watch that.
Probably
someday.
the same hotel. Yeah.
Probably is.
Mm-hmm. They reminded me of theater sets a lot of times.
A low budget often is.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, yeah. I mean, not they looked good. I thought, but I kept thinking, it's like on a stage, kind of. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know how it was done.
They probably only had one
studio
set of the motel room, and they decorated it different ways, so it kind of was just a big stage.
Yeah. Anyway, thumbs up from me.
Okay, so for the past month, we've been talking about the Blind Dead. We had the Tombs of the Blind Dead. We had the Return of the Blind Dead. We had the Ghost Galleon. And this time we have Night of the Seagulls, the fourth and final Blind Dead movie from 1975.
The bony hands are back.
You and your plastic hands.
It's the bony hands of the Blind Dead. Coming for you.
you like this one?
No, I hated it.
Okay, you had been saying you liked the first one, and that you second and the third one better as they went on.
I liked the third one best, and then the fourth one I liked the least.
Okay.
Hate's a strong word, but boy. The story was sound. The story in principle was good, but not enough Blind Dead, not enough scary.
You've seen it all before in the first three movies.
Yeah, and they didn't show enough of the Blind Dead or them being very scary or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to say...
Mostly from a distance, and...
Okay, I'm going to stick with my pattern from last week. The first one was best, the second one was next, third is third, and fourth is worst. I'm going to have a straight progression.
So we're in agreement on the fourth being the worst, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I enjoyed the third the most.
Directed by Armando de Osorio, written by him also, stars Victor Petit, Maria Costi, and Sandra Mozorowski, 1 hour, 29 minutes. At some point in the distant past, a young couple is traveling by night to their new home, but they get lost. The husband goes to a nearby house to ask directions, but no one's home. He hears horses coming and sees that a group of men in white Templars robes approaches.
Oh, we're saved.
They stab him to death.
We've been rescued. Yeah, whoops, not.
They grab the wife and take her to their temple, where they ritually stab her and remove her heart, which they place in the mouth of the statue of the frog god. The men then lick all the blood from the corpse and feed what's left to the crabs. And this is kind of a replay of the same sacrifice scene we've seen before.
Kind of.
With the addition of the crabs and the frog god. But it's kind of the same thing. And we jump up to modern day.
And gratuitous boobies.
Well, yeah, if you're going to lick the blood off, you have to pull the top off.
Because they have to rip her top open in order to sacrifice her.
Yeah.
Not that was at all gratuitous. No, but yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. A young couple, Henry and Joan, move to a very primitive town, and he's going to be the new town doctor. They go into a shop, but none of the villagers will speak to them.
Very unfriendly.
Finally, they get to the doctor's home, inside a boarded-up old building. The old doctor is leaving town and suggests that Henry and Joan do the same. He's terrified. As Joan unpacks that night, a man with a bloody face watches her from outside the window. The man, whose name is Teddy, comes inside and says that the people outside beat him in the street. He's terrified, as if tonight was something special. Meanwhile, Henry and the old doctor talk. The doctor says there's no danger inland, and that's where he's going. He says that they shouldn't go out at night, and don't ask anyone any questions. The old man eagerly heads away on his donkey.
And rather than, why couldn't he have just told him what's going on?
Because then there'd been no movie.
Yeah.
Communication is always a thing.
Actually, communication is a big thing in movies. Well, not just horror movies, but
Drama.
Yeah.
They hear a bell at midnight. Henry says it's coming from the sea. The Seagulls go crazy. The reusable wobbling tombstone footage gets dragged out once again, and the dead rise from the ruins and mount their horses once more. And I swear it's the same footage from the first movie.
It was a lot of same reused footage, yeah.
Henry and Joan go out for a walk to see what's going on outside, and they see the villagers down by the water, and then the two head home. A little too soon to see what's going on. The villagers, in the meantime, chain a woman to a big rock and use her as a sacrifice. The dead head down the hill to the water's edge and kill the girl. Joan hears the girl scream. Or was it a seagull?
And I guess the idea is that the village, offers gals so they don't come up and rise and take over the whole village.
Yeah.
They're appeased.
The next day, we're assuming at this point. It gets explained later.
Yeah.
The next day, the shopkeeper still ignores Joan. Lucy, a girl from town, comes to work for them. That night, a girl named Tilda beats on their door. "They want to take me away," she screams. Her father comes and takes her home. The procession of villagers immediately heads her out to the beach, just like the previous night, and it goes just like the previous night and the sacrifice from the opening scene. At first, they can't find her, but once she starts crying, they zoom in on her. These blind dead are really blind. There's a really long scene of a crab crawling on the body. I guess we're supposed to be creeped out by that.
Yeah, it's kind of gross.
The next morning, the doctor goes looking for Tilda, and her father says she's gone to the city for treatment. Some of the villagers go hunting for Teddy the Hunchback, and he falls off a cliff.
She's not really gone to the town for treatment.
No. That evening, the villagers come for Lucy. She's to be tonight's sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
Teddy wakes up at the bottom of the cliff, and Joan once again asks Henry to leave town, and he finally agrees.
About time.
Yeah, Teddy stumbles in, and Henry operates on him. They can't leave tonight after all because Teddy's injured.
Yep, needs to recover.
Yeah. Teddy explains that they take away one girl each night for 7 nights every 7 years.
They're
7 girls,
coincidental.
7 nights every 7 years.
Coincidental arrival. But,
The dead girls become the seagulls that fly at night. Suddenly, the seagulls all go silent.
and this is another point that makes sense. Okay, so they're sacrificing 7 girls on 7 nights. Why was the doctor so absolutely terrified to be in town? It's not going to affect him in the least. I mean, yeah, he's horrified that this is happening, but he's like, fleeing for his life. Or
He doesn't want to be complicit with the murders, but yet he knows what's going to happen if they don't give him the girls.
Yeah.
Maybe he's seen the dead.
Okay, it wasn't just a don't want to be complicit fleeing, though. It was.
Yeah, it wasn't.
He was really terrified. Like they're gonna kill. Like no, they want young girls, or they don't want old guys. They don't.
Suddenly, the seagulls go silent. Henry rushes out to save Lucy, and he unties her, and they run away. The next morning, all the villagers leave town since they know what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Henry, Joan, Lucy, and Teddy remain behind. They can't move Teddy. That night, the dead ride through town looking for the last sacrifice that they were cheated out of. Someone steals the doctor's car, so they have to stay. Henry barricades the house and finishes just before the dead arrive. They force their way inside, but Henry sets one of them on fire.
Mm-hmm.
They drag Teddy outside and kill him easily. Henry, Joan, and Lucy head out through a window and steal the undead horses. Lucy falls off her horse.
That was a nice touch. The dead are
Anybody
coming
can ride a
in
ghostly
inside,
horse.
and they're traipsing through the house and upstairs, and then they steal the horses. And
Right off.
yeah, the dead are looking out the window saying, wait, that's not how that's supposed to
He
work.
stole our car.
Okay, they weren't really doing that, but kind of funny.
Yeah. Lucy falls off her horse and the dead get her. The horses take Henry and Joan right to the sacrificial temple. Henry then finds the frog god statue and decides that's the root of all the problems and needs to be destroyed. More dead start rising to protect it, but they manage to destroy the statue anyway. The dead fall back into their crypts as their eyes bleed gushers of blood. The end.
And the whole time, it was that easy. All they had to do was smash the statue.
The statue that didn't exist in the other 3 movies.
The whole 7 years that, they could have been smashing the statue.
And hundreds of years before that.
Yeah, every 7 years. No. Nobody thought of doing that before him.
Well, the village was creepy and old enough. It was another real location and it looked good. The story, on the other hand, was pretty weak and predictable, and more than that, the whole thing is starting to feel a little too stretched out. Other than the dead men on horseback, this didn't have much in common with the other movies. Not even the obligatory stuff I mentioned in the 3rd movie. No rape, no professor, no lesbian flashbacks.
No, had boobies.
It was almost as if they were trying to... Well, a lot of movies have boobies.
Yes, I know.
It was almost as if they were trying to get away from the formula, but it failed badly.
It didn't help. Yeah, didn't make it better.
The sound effects are loud and annoying. The echoing sound the horses make, the screeching of the seagulls, and the so-called musical cues are grating, to put it nicely. The music here really annoyed me.
Screechy.
There were long stretches of moody images and old buildings here, and I was bored through a lot of it. It could easily have been half as long. Boring. Yeah, it kind of was.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're unanimous on this is the worst one of the 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Overall, the series, though, I would definitely recommend.
Yes,
it's a good series.
Overall, yeah. And if you want completion, you should watch the 4th one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's our show for this week. Thanks for joining us. Stop in during the week at horrorguys.com for news, horror updates, and all our reviews are in writing.
Mm-hmm.
And again, next week, we'll have 1990's The Witches, Return to Oz from 85, Coraline from 2009, and the Goosebumps movie from 2015.
Goosebumps?
Goosebumps. Coraline is still wants to autocorrect it to Caroline. And let's see, I have not seen any of these. Have you?
I have not.
Okay. So Be
Oh.
first time for That's the
Yeah.
thing. Most of these so-called kid-type friendly movies came out after I was a kid.
Yeah, same here.
Mad
Yeah.
Monster Party from a couple weeks off in the future is old enough. I have seen that one.
I think I have too.
These others, I've not.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll see you
Bye-bye.
next week.
See ya.